Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So for today I wanted to continue my Newcrest series and make a part 2 to it. So we're going to build Morts, the funeral home, and it's not exactly a funeral home, but like you'll see when we get into the build. So I'm just going to jump straight in and let's just get to it. So I started off on another 30 by 20. It's directly next to Bob's Burgers, or Tom's Burgers is what I ended up calling it. So for this one, I noticed in some reference pictures and just watching the show that it's actually 3 stories high. I didn't realize that. I thought it was only 2. But Bob's Burgers in the show is only 2 stories, whereas all the other surrounding houses look like they're 3. So, or townhouses, I guess you could call them, or like live-in businesses. Also, I did find the mod I was talking about in the last game, and you can't do it with a restaurant. I thought that you could, so I was incorrect on that, and I just want to say that here. But I did find a mod that allows you to do it as a retail center, a cafe, there's a whole bunch of options. I don't remember all of them. But I did find the mod. It's by Lil Miss something. I will put it in the description below if you guys want to play with it. I haven't played with it yet, but I do have it downloaded and I did find it. So I do have it and I will put it in the comments for you. It looks like some people have said it doesn't work the best, but hey, it's a start. And I think for the most part, the creator is still pretty active making mods and stuff. So besides the point, this build, since I couldn't do a funeral home, and that's literally just because we don't have any of the stuff for that inside of the Sims. Like we don't have like even a graveyard lot type. So I I had to kind of improvise a little bit and I made it a retail center instead. I wanted this to like not just be for show like this entire series. I want it to actually be playable. So it is playable. I just had to put some constraints, and I think in one of my personal saves, Tom's Burgers ended up turning into a cafe. However, just so that they could live above it, because I really wanted to play in it. So I'll leave that mod in the description for you guys if you guys want to go and play with them, or if you guys even download them, let me know. I'm not limiting packs for myself on these builds because what I'm trying to build is kind of specific, and I think I need everything that I have. So most of the base stuff, if you guys end up wanting to play with these, are going to be completely usable. You'll just miss some like decorations here and there, and that'll be probably about it. But nothing critical should leave the game itself whenever you download it, if you want to play with it. So hopefully, let me know if you guys do, and let me know if there's problems so I can fix them. But like I said, there's no funeral home like pack. There's no, I know that there's like custom content and stuff for it, but I really didn't want to play with a bunch of custom content. I don't like having to update it constantly. And even then, I know you don't have to update them constantly, but remembering where I got it from and like trying to keep it all on track with all the other mods that I use is just like too much for me. So, because I keep a list of all the mods that I use with links to them so that I can get back to them and update them whenever the Sims update something. I highly recommend it if anyone else plays with a bunch of mods. I would recommend doing that. However, it does take a lot of time to like construct those things and make sure the links work, and like it's a whole mess. But since we don't have funeral homes or anything in this game, I decided to make this a retail center. So I have a little like background story that I thought of when I was building this, of why it's a retail center and not a funeral home anymore. So the lot right next door to Tom's Burgers or Bob's Burgers in the show, it it's always changing in every intro. It's always a different store, or sometimes it's just completely empty. So that one, I don't know what I'm going to build on the right side yet. It might even be an abandoned building, or maybe like, I don't know. I haven't figured that out. But this one, there's no funeral home. So it's a retail center. I like to think that it was like Mr. Fish Odor came through, because you know how he comes through in the series to Bob, and he's always just like, I need the rent money, or he's doing something ridiculous. I figured that he did that to the funeral home because he obviously probably thinks death is gross, because he's just like that kind of a character to me. So I figured he raised the rent. Mort was like, people aren't dying fast enough. Like, we don't live in a big enough town. So now I'm just going to be a retail store. And that's what happened. So that's what we're seeing. This is a retail store. It's completely empty. It is usable. You don't even have to use anything that's on the second or third floor. But since we don't ever really see an in-depth look of Morts inside of the show itself, and I didn't want to look up a bunch of like fan-based stuff, and maybe we do, and I just haven't seen it in the series yet, because I haven't seen all of Bob's Burgers. I stopped around season 6, and then I just recently picked it back up, but I started all the way over. So I'm in season 11 right now at the time of this recording, but so I haven't seen inside Mort's very much. We've seen like the basement of his place, which I didn't even put in this build because it has enough floors. It was expensive enough. Like didn't need to put a basement like I did in Bob's Burgers or in Tom's Burgers. Like I just didn't feel like it was necessary. Plus, I had a hard time like filling the space that I had given myself inside this build. So I didn't want to deal with the basement on top of that. And in his basement is like where the crematorium is. And so I don't have anything to replicate that. I could put an oven, but I feel like that's just insensitive. So like I didn't. I didn't even build a basement. I'm not gonna deal with it. Wasn't gonna deal with it. But let me tell you, the inside layout of figuring out how this was all gonna work, especially with 3 floors, I wasn't super sure where to put the stairs, and I wasn't super sure how big the apartments were gonna be, or if it was gonna just be like one apartment per floor. I ended up doing like multiple apartments. I think it's 3 apartments per floor, and they're like studios because I'm assuming like it's Mr. Fish Odor. He doesn't care about his tenants very much. He thinks most of them are gross. Like he said it in the show in the early seasons. So I just assumed that he like would want to nickel and dime people, even though like I don't know if Mort would be the one in charge of it. I feel like Mort just rents out the space on the bottom and then lives upstairs. Cause like even Bob doesn't own his building. He just rents it. And I'm assuming that Mort is the same way. So Mr. Fishoder raised it because he sucks. I actually really like Mr. Fishoder in the show. I think his character is like just absolutely wild. So I think it all fits. It works for me, and that's all that I cared about. Like the theory works. Like Mort's rent got raised, and burning bodies and running funerals just wasn't it no more. So he had to retail. He had to make a retail store, and maybe he sells coffins here. Maybe he still sticks with that theme. I don't know. I mean, like it's a pretty generic enough store. You could put anything you wanted in it. We don't have coffins in the game, so like we got to use some Sims imagination for that. But like ultimately, it's just a retail store. You can make it whatever you wanted. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be pretty. Like especially in Bob's Burgers, like most of everybody is like kind of messy and like you know what I mean? Like I feel like this is a really good excuse to be kind of like messy in a build because Bob's Burgers itself is kind of messy. Like and it's on purpose, but it is messy. And so I felt like keeping the theme of it all and making this as far as I could at least like Bob's Burgers inspired, especially for this build. I have to say inspired because like even like Bob's Burgers, we don't have like that green color and like the yellow accents and stuff and those types of windows that they have. We don't have that in the game, and I'm not trying to download thousands of CC or even just go to try and find it because even that's going to be daunting. So it's a generic thing. It's just a generic retail store. There's nothing on the shelves. It's completely empty. It's just got the shelving and like the cash registers and what I think would look good in a retail store. I worked in retail for a while and it was like my favorite job of all time, which I know people have like very conflicting opinions about retail, but I loved working in retail. I will always love working in retail. Retail, I had so much fun. Like I've worked I just love retail. It's so much fun. I would choose it over food any day. I don't like working in food. I'd rather work in retail. I'd rather like be around, retail objects. So anyways, like I said, it's pretty generic. It's just like any other retail store you'd probably see in a mall or in a strip mall. It's nothing extravagant. Like we're recreating Bob's Burgers in this series. So nothing has to be extravagant because Bob's Burgers isn't. It's really not. And I love that about the show. And I think that's why I continue to watch it like the most is it feels representative of where I'm at, I guess. It's a great show. If you guys haven't watched Bob's Burgers, I highly recommend you go and watch it. I don't know how it's rated PG though, because I'm not sure how they got away with that. It doesn't feel very PG. It feels more PG-13 to me. But yeah, I mean, that's the retail center. That's pretty much it done. I put a little sign on the inside to like, oh, this is retail. And then like their apartments are on the right. They'll have to go up the stairs. So I'm probably just going to build like a little hallway there. And we're just going to build 3 units. So they're all studios, meaning there's no discernible room except for the bathroom. Again, like the big like middle open, it's basically a giant open concept apartment. There's no room. There is a bed in every single one of them, but there's no like sectioned off rooms or doorways except for the bathroom. I left everything pretty basic, and then these front ones have a little patio outside, which I figured you could charge more for because knowing Mr. Fish Odor, he would. So you know, I figured that would work well. And on top of that, like having these on top of a retail center, like kind of makes sense in the way that we're doing life now. As I've seen in some bigger cities, you have like a Whole Foods in the bottom of a bunch of apartments, or you have like, you name it, like they're getting creative with it. So I feel like this is pretty realistic, but it also fits within the realm of Tom's Burgers. That's what I'm calling it, is Tom's Burgers, because I don't think I can call it Bob's Burgers. So I'm just gonna call it Tom's Burgers, and this is Morts. I didn't change that because there's really no need to. Like I said, we have the double doors on the balcony for that front one, and that's it. Like none of the other ones have a balcony. And I kind of wish I would have put a balcony maybe like on the side or something of one of the side ones, or even like maybe put some more windows on the long edge. But we only see the three buildings in Bob's Burgers, and they're all technically like built next to each other, so they don't even have windows on the sides like that. So I didn't put them in, and it was more so not like not laziness, but just like fitting it in, and like I wanted it to look like they were supposed to be put together. Um, I don't know, maybe that was kind of a bad call, but I ended up really I like this build a lot. I like the retail center. I like the little apartments. I think they're cute. Now, the apartments on this floor, on that middle floor, are the level 2 wall height. They're medium wall height. I thought about doing short wall heights, but I've been building a lot with medium wall height, and I'm realizing I like it so much more because I can put more stuff on the walls, and I like to put stuff on the walls, especially once I've like had my Sims do some art stuff, or even when the kids do their drawings or the birth certificates or marriage certificates, any of that stuff. I love to have a lot of wall space because there is always, in my personal plays, there are always a wall in the house somewhere that has all of that information on it. Like there's always a wall that's covered in all the birth certificates, all of the graduation ceremony certificates, high school graduation diplomas, like all of that stuff. I always put on one ginormous wall. That way when I move houses, I can just quickly take everything down. So I didn't leave a ton of space. Like I didn't really decorate heavily either. At first when I was building this specific unit, because I didn't really know what to put on the second and third floors at like the initial time of recording this video. So I actually went through a bunch of different options, and I thought about just making them their own like full on apartments. Like just full on have like separate rooms, because it wouldn't be too hard to make like this a bedroom, and then the one next to it the kitchen, and then the one next to that another bedroom, or you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have been difficult for me to do that. But it really came down to like having enough Sims on the lot. I like to have a lot of Sims on the lot, especially if you turn this into a residential rental. I love to have Sims on the lot. And the more that they're there, the better. Granted, that does bring like more issues because we know that for rent is kind of like glitchy, but it is fun. It is fun to have them like show up. Um, so I'm not gonna lie, the apartments they're not like crazy, and I do this in all my builds on purpose because I intend for them to be played with, and to have room for you to grow with it, so you don't have to change your build after an hour or two of playing. I've had times where I've downloaded or other stuff from the gallery, and there's not enough wall space, or like the room isn't the right size for me, or there's always like something, and I have to like switch up whatever happened in it, or like whatever like got all weird in it. So that's just kind of how I build in general. Is I like to keep it relatively simple, one for cost, but two for playability, and like I like to have room to grow in wherever I'm putting my Sims. So I try to leave it relatively bland. I have done builds, especially like on my TikTok page, which you guys should go check out my TikTok. I make a bunch of like videos of just single room builds, and they're just supposed to be for aesthetic reasons. They're not meant to be played in. I don't even think half of them are playable, but I put so much decoration and stuff into them, and the videos are really just like aesthetically edited, so even filmed. So I would like definitely go check out my TikTok. I put them there. They're also on YouTube Shorts, but the YouTube Shorts are reduced because I can't upload anything longer than a minute. So those are just like the cinematic thing you're gonna get as like a preview. But if you want to see the full build of how I did a lot of that stuff from my TikTok Shorts, just go over to my TikTok, because, or if you want to see how I did the builds from my YouTube Shorts, I don't even remember what I said. If you have the build from the YouTube Shorts, go to my TikTok because I have the full thing there, on like the whole build. If you want to see what I used and everything like that. I love those builds. I think they're fun. So like I said, it's pretty bland on this third floor. I just copied the second up and then edited, because this third floor is a single wall height, the like first level. But yeah, that's the build. It's I called it Mort's Apartments and Retail because, like I said, Mr. Fish owed to raise the rent and like he couldn't afford it, and so he had to open a retail store in his mortuary. You could even give it the haunted lot type trait so that like ghosts show up as if like in a past life it was a crematorium. So that's the build though. It's nothing crazy. It's really like not extravagant, but that's the point of the show is it's not extravagant. It's just like the characters themselves are over the top. So I hope you guys like this build. I really enjoyed making it, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, bye everyone.